Hi, everybody. I'm Ginny Schuster, and I am so excited to have on Ginnypreneur, who do you know, Mary Brown today. And just to let you know, I met Mary through Polka Dots. It's a power group of ladies, and I got involved with them back in July last year and just have met Mary and so many amazing ladies. But Mary's story is so powerful that I am eager for her to share about boundaries. And boundaries is really a tough subject for people and how to conquer it. So, Mary, would you tell people how did you get involved in this? How did it all start?
Yes, for sure. Well, I became a boundaries coach mostly because I had overcome my own journey of the disease to please and learned some tools and strategies and wanted to be able to help people pleasers to be able to have healthy boundaries and build confidence and say no when they wanted to say no without feeling bad about it, and say yes to the things they want to say yes to, and really have meaningful self-care. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share a little more about my story and how that happened if you'd like me to.
Oh, I definitely want to hear the background because I'm sure there were hardships that you had to go through in order to reach this point and make it into a business,
Mhm.
basically, so that you can help others.
Yeah.
So take us back and how did it all start? Where did you start to realize that this was your avenue and your passion?
Yes. So I grew up in a big, huge family. We had 5 boys, 4 girls, 2 parents, and no boundaries.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
What
And it
size house?
um well, my dad was in the military, so we moved around, but the home that he retired in and my family settled in, it actually was just like a 3 bedroom, 2 bath home in Clearwater, Florida. And then of course by then we didn't have all the kids, but I think there were 7 of us when we moved in to that home. And so they did a huge addition. So my grandfather was a general contractor and they did a lot of the work themselves. And they added on what we called the back of the house. And like where the house would have normally ended, there was a door and we went down this long hallway and we had 3 more bedrooms and 2 more bathrooms. So it ended up being a 6 bedroom, 4 bath house in a regular size neighborhood.
Well, at least you were in Florida where the weather was warm and your mom could kick you out and it wasn't so bad. You didn't have to put on gloves and hats and get all warm and bundled up.
Yes, back in the days when we were told when we got home from school, like, stay outside until the street lights come on.
Right. I don't want to see you.
Yeah. So living in such a large family and we lived in the South and my mother grew up in a religious home. A lot of people pleasing tendencies were just part of our family culture, right? And I was taught from a very young age that we did our best to help make people feel happy. We took care of each other. We did a lot of kind of funny things like wear each other's clothes and eat off each other's plates and sign each other's report cards, all those kinds of silly things. But also, we took responsibility for each other's feelings. So if someone in our home was upset, then we were taught to stop what we were doing, go see about that person, and stay with them until we made them feel better. Um, and so I just became a people pleaser very early on. I was the best friend to everyone. I was the caretaker in every relationship. I had a lot of leadership already in me. And, I just became like, student council, like all the nurturing positions, right? I was the resident mom when I moved into the dorms, like all the things. And when I got to college, I met a guy who liked me and I liked him, and he wanted to get married and he asked me to marry him. And I said yes because I didn't want to hurt his feelings.
Ooh. Oh, wow. That's a deep commitment because you
Mhm.
don't want to make him feel bad. Oh, my goodness.
Yes. And so we got married, and I was told, like, the marital advice I received was like, do everything you can to make him happy. It's your job to take care of him, and
Yeah, you
put his
signed the
needs before
vow,
yours.
Mary.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Like, put
signed
his
it
needs.
for better, for worse, right?
Yes, yeah, put his needs first. And again, my mom is, she grew up in the 60s in the Bible Belt, and my parents have been married 60 years now, and that seems to work for them. But my first husband, he grew up in a very different family, and he was taught to advocate for himself. And what I found was that I was taking care of him, and no one was taking care of me. And the problem with being a people pleaser and not having boundaries is I ended up hating him and a lot of the people around me, because I had built so much resentment because I was just busy serving and putting everyone's needs first and doing everything I could. And I honestly did not understand, like, who was supposed to take care of me,
Yeah.
right?
Well, there's the question of, was it somebody that you met that started to question you, were your needs being met?
Yeah. So the turning point for me was when I had my first child. And I was a new mom. I was a relatively young mom. And we were in the hospital several days because he had some complications at birth. And I remember the first couple of days in the hospital with this new baby. And people who've been around a new baby, like, maybe you understand, there's this like serene feeling, right? It was like I
Yeah,
was looking at this tiny baby and I thought, wow, how did I get like this valuable human being, right? Like, he's
right.
so precious, he's so valuable, and he was like born valuable. He hasn't done anything to earn his worth. He hasn't helped anybody do anything, right? And like those mom moments of looking, I knew he would make mistakes, but that would be okay. It wasn't going to change his value in my eyes. Um, and I left the hospital with a week-old baby, knowing that if he was born valuable, so was I. And I needed to change the way that I was treating myself and that I was allowing other people to treat me. And I would like to tell you it was smooth, but it wasn't.
I don't think anything in life is smooth. I think we have to go through the hardships in order to advance ourselves.
Yeah. So I had this new baby and I had this, kind of aha moment there about my own self-worth. And and then I needed to figure out, like, what do I actually like? What do I want? What are my needs and how do I meet them?
Yeah.
Um and then I needed to figure out how to talk about it because I didn't have the communication skills to
Oh,
to
yes.
speak about it in a way. I mean, the first few times I tried to set a boundary, it sounded like a defiant teenager. I was like, "You can't do that to me," or "One more time and you're
Right.
out." Like I didn't really have a way to communicate it. And then once I learned how to say it, I was like, "Okay, now they have to do it." Well, no, it's still my job to follow through. And so then I had to learn how to follow through and actually have self-care. And it's been a journey, and it's been, you know, rugged and lovely and all of the things mixed all into one. Um, and professionally, kind of simultaneously, I became a social worker and I managed teams of caseworkers and kind of moved up and up and up and up that social work ladder because I was really good at taking care of people. And right?
Still in the same role.
Yeah, but I saw the burnout of the caseworkers, and so I developed a coaching program for them to help support
Nice.
caseworkers, and which maybe should have been my first clue that I would have been a good coach, but no, I was just kind of mad because then all the good parts of my job I had delegated to someone else, and I had to be the manager. And so,
And
so there
still
was,
get the bad parts of the job.
so there was that. And then the next, when I had my youngest child and I took a break from social work, I just had this beautiful time to really reflect on what are my gifts? What are my talents? I knew what my skill set was and what I was capable of doing. Um, but I really had this reflective period where, I stopped social work indefinitely. And I thought, maybe I'll stay with her a year or maybe till she goes to kindergarten. I don't know. We had saved up and planned, and I thought, I'm just going to, they would reach out to me and they would say, like, hey, we've got a spot. We need you back, right? Because that's a hard job to fill. And I thought, well, let me think about it if that's really what I want to do. And I came to this like realization that I had written hundreds and hundreds of treatment plans for people who struggled with mental illness and addiction and abuse and neglect and all of those things. And what I noticed was there was always a woman around that person who was struggling because of that person's struggle. So we would bring families together and try to help them struggle, try to help them support the person who was the identified client of that treatment plan. And I would see there would be like a mom, maybe a mom of somebody with an adult child with a mental illness, or there would be a wife or a girlfriend or a partner of someone who had an addiction, or there would be like a sister or a neighbor or someone who was invested in this person who really needed a lot of treatment. But the woman who loved that person, she needed boundaries. She needed self-care and she needed confidence. So initially, I became a coach to support women who have a very difficult relationship with a loved one who's struggling. And
Mostly women that have the issue, or is it also guys?
yeah, so I only coach women, but the women that I coach, they might have anyone in their home or in their family or in their life that is struggling. And they are a relatively healthy functioning person. They are a woman who wants to learn and grow. And that's where the gap in services was. There wasn't support for her because she's not the one with the addiction, or she's not the one with the diagnosis. And so initially that's how I became a coach, was to support women who had a difficult relationship. And over time, of course, it's evolved. And about half of the women that I coach still have a really difficult relationship. And if they want to end a difficult relationship, I just do that in one free call. But if they want to maintain a healthy relationship with an unhealthy person, then that needs, some support and some coaching to be able to do that. So about half of the women that I coach, they have a difficult relationship with someone, and the other half are just people pleasers like I was. And just, maybe they are caregivers, or maybe they are business owners, or maybe they are just women in the world who have heard this word boundaries and don't know what it means or how it applies to them. And and it's so fun. It's the best job in the whole world.
Well, I saw that you started a course,
Yeah.
and why don't you talk about that? Your 12-week course that is coming up. Is that going to be on a regular basis? How are you going to set these courses up so you can let viewers know?
Yeah, so I've been coaching one-on-one for a few years, and that's been lovely and wonderful. And then last year, I noticed that there were some themes that I was seeing in people's progression, and that some of our coaching, I created a bunch of tools like worksheets that I could use through coaching, and I kind of noticed that the journey of learning boundaries from being a people pleaser to being a boundaries pro really went in 3 steps. And the first was building confidence and deciding from that place of confidence what's okay and not okay for you. The second one is learning how to communicate your boundaries for more.
That's a tough one.
It's a tough
In
one.
my opinion, can we go over that communication a little bit more? Because I
Totally.
think an awful lot of time, I'm going to go on personal experience
Mhm.
that for myself, a lot of times I sit back and observe, and if someone takes over the conversation, I just allow it to go that direction as opposed to continuing on with my conversation. So,
Mhm.
communication could mean that someone doesn't do not do it right. You
Mm.
know, how do you learn the right verbiage? Is it because you haven't had enough schooling? Sometimes women don't feel that they're smart, and so they step back. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. So when we're communicating our boundaries, let's just say saying no, for example, right? That's the obvious one that people think of when they're trying to learn boundaries, right? Um, One tool that I encourage people to use is this sentence of a tool that's called I love you and no, right? And so if it's a person that you have a relationship of love with, I encourage you try out that tool. Try to say I love you and no. If it's not a person that you're comfortable saying I love you to, the tool of the sentence, you can take the sentiment of that sentence, right? You might be able to say something like I appreciate you, or I appreciate this about you or about us, about our relationship, about what we're working on together, and no, right? Or I respect where you're coming from, and that's not going to work for me, right?
Mhm.
So if you want to be able to say it concisely in one sentence, uh, expressing an appreciation for the person and the relationship or the common goal that you're working towards and saying no to the request, you can combine that into one beautiful sentence that's very powerful and works. It works really, really well. If you're wanting to have more of an explanation, then another tool I teach is like the boundary sandwich idea, right? So it's like you tell the person, I really appreciate you contacting me and thinking of me and requesting this of me. And I'm not able to commit to that at this time. And I look forward to seeing you in the future, right? So that's like 3 to 5 sentences. It
Very
really only
helpful.
needs, yes, it really only needs to be three. But sometimes people like to pad it a little bit. But the idea is like you start with a sentence expressing appreciation for the person, or again, the cause or the relationship. And then you say no to their request, very clearly, no to the request. And then follow up with a sentence about, and I still really appreciate our relationship, and I look forward to seeing you next time, or whatever that is. and
That's
and
got to
that,
be really helpful for people because one area that women get involved with is when they have kids
Mhm.
is there are all sorts of areas, whether it's church or whether it's school, functions like that, that moms get together and would love to have help. And sometimes there are these ladies that say, oh, I can do it all.
Mhm.
And so that's what makes me think of the boundaries that you're presenting. That's helpful for people that way.
Yes, for sure. And I remember when my son was younger, and I got a phone call asking if I would be the like the room mom for his first grade class, right?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, sure, I'd love to do that. And I hung up the phone, and then I was mad at the teacher for asking me. Right? And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting, Mary. Like, you're mad at the teacher for asking moms to be the room mom because you didn't have the confidence and the skills to say no in a way that was going to feel good to you. Right. And so that boundary sandwich, if I would have had the skill then, right, to be able to say, hey, I appreciate you calling and asking. And I understand that you're looking for a room mom and you deserve a room mom, and room moms are important. But I'm going through a divorce and working full time and cannot commit to doing that in a way that's going to feel good to me. And so what I'd like to do is maybe sign up to bring a treat for the holiday party, or
Excellent. Oh my goodness, Mary. This
Mhm.
is so helpful to so many moms, I'm sure, because they felt in that place. So just to clarify, did you call back and that was what you said to the teacher?
I did. I said something similar. I was still in that process of learning how to communicate boundaries at that time. And yes, I did. I called back and I said, hey, I've been thinking about this and I don't think I have the time and the energy to commit to doing this in a way that's going to serve both of us. And so
I love it.
I love, I appreciate you, and I love the work that you're doing with my kiddo, and teachers are important and you deserve more support than I'm able to give you right now. So,
So that was two, communication.
yep,
And number three,
is following through,
follow through. Oh my goodness.
right? So women come to me every day and they say, okay, I said it. I told them, I told him to stop calling me mean names. And then he still called me a mean name. And so, right? And I'm like,
Where's your shield?
and so I'm like, what? And so he didn't respect my boundaries. He didn't follow my boundaries, right? And I'm like, oh, sugar, here's the deal. It's your job to follow through with your boundaries, right? So it's your job to say it, and then I use a tool called an if-then statement, right? So if
Okay.
this boundary violation is to happen again, then this is what I can and will do to protect and respect myself, right? So that might sound like, if you call me a mean name, I'm gonna hang up the phone or end our conversation or leave the room or whatever that is to protect and respect myself. And then I'm gonna go practice some form of self-care that reassures myself, I know I'm not that thing that you're.
That's so important what you're saying there. The self-care.
Mhm,
Once again, that's what you were saying you had a hard time going through. The
mhm,
self-care comes up with clarifying. And as I'm listening to you, I hear a person has to get clear on what their wants are and who they are, which is huge personal growth of a person, because for so long you've had parents telling you what to do, and
mhm.
then you have teachers telling you what to do, and then you have professors telling you what to do, and then you have your boss telling you what to do. Okay, so if you want to step out of that, you have to clarify where you're going,
Mhm.
why you're going, and what steps you're going to take.
Right. And so we use a tool called boundary charting, right? So if you can
Ooh,
just think of like a simple T chart, like just make a T chart on your page, right? And one side says, this is what's okay for me, and this is what's not okay for me, right? Or you could say, I will do these things and I will not do these things, right? And just a simple T chart. And that is the personal growth work that we do before we start communicating our boundaries. We do
wow.
all of that work where it's introspective. You do that work alone or with a coach or a trusted person in your life. And really, you have to be empowered enough to decide what's okay and not okay for me, from a place of self-worth, from a place of confidence, and from a place of love and compassion for the people in your world, right?
Right.
Because boundaries are not about other people. They're not about punishing people. They're not about controlling people. Some people do teach boundaries as a way to control people, but I don't. That's not in alignment with my integrity. I teach that boundaries are how you love yourself and another person at the same time. And that it's absolutely possible. It's possible to have self-respect and respect for your partner. It's possible to have compassion for yourself as a human being on this journey on earth, and also have compassion for every other person who's also born valuable, right? And it just, boundaries is a learned skill. Nobody comes to the world learning it. And if you didn't grow up in a family that taught it to you, or you haven't had, experiences on earth that have taught it to you, that it's totally okay wherever you're at, because you can learn the skill of boundaries.
Oh, wow. How powerful. So how many kids do you have?
I have 3 children.
3 children.
Yeah,
And
teenagers
you,
and a 5-year-old.
a what?
I have teenagers and a 5-year-old.
Oh, you're in the fun years.
Yeah,
Love
I've
it.
got high
Yes.
school and kindergarten.
Ah, so are they learning about boundaries? Because with kids, probably that's different than your spouse and your parents.
hmm Yeah, so, I have a lot of compassion for my children being my children, because they really don't stand a chance in terms of their behavior management. But
Whoops, you chose the wrong mom, kids.
my daughter said someone asked her, like, what does your mom do? And she says, she just tells people they're worth it all day. I think that's what she does.
She doesn't want anyone really to know.
It could be worse. They do get a little frustrated when people recognize me, and they're like, could we just have a regular mom that like goes into our school and people aren't happy to see her? Which is better than when I was a child protection manager and I went into
Oh,
schools and people were not happy to see me.
what a difference. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But
Well, you remind them of that. Just be happy that I'm through with those days.
right, one time we were at the drive-in and my kids were throwing a football. We have a really cool drive-in movie theater here in Fort Collins, and my kids were throwing a football, and someone came up to me and said something about they had seen something I had posted on social media that was transformative for them, and my poor kids were just like, oh, like, can we go out in public without your fangirls? They call them my fangirls. In terms of boundaries, for them, I think that, they're human beings. I believe, as parents, we're gifted stewardship over human beings. And so I really believe that have their own journeys to all the life lessons. And it does come up occasionally in our family and kind of our, interactions with each other. But because I have boundaries for myself that, may be different than their friends' parents. And so things like, I have a morning routine that I like to follow. And I have like my special chair and my meditation app, and they know, like, unless it's an emergency, mom sleeps from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. This is what an emergency is. This is what an emergency is not. And so these are my sleeping
Which
hours.
side of the chart are you on?
Yeah. And then mom does her morning meditation and journaling and things like that in the morning. And if she's sitting in her chair, then that's, she's not to be interrupted. And at 7 o'clock, I'm available to make breakfast, drive them, whatever else they need. But so that's just an example of like how my boundaries affect my parenting. At one point, before they could drive, I felt like I was in that stage of life where, we just like hung out in the car, taking them to all their activities and things.
Right.
And I had one child who she's always been a little on her own time frame, and her time frame is slower than the rest of ours. And she would lollygag. We call it lollygag, like to kind of dawdle to get to the car. And so we decided that we had a boundary that we would tell her, or via text or in person, that we were here for her, and we would wait 5 minutes. And if she didn't come to the van in 5 minutes, she had missed her ride. And she wasn't in trouble. I wasn't mad at her. she just missed a ride. So it was her job to find herself a ride home or walk home or whatever she needed to do. Because my boundary was, I'm okay to come and pick you up and to wait 5 minutes, but I'm not okay with waiting longer than that. And so the van's moving at this time. And she was like, Mom,
You're gonna lose it, folks.
can you just be a regular parent? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. This is who you got. And I love you so
But
much.
isn't that better, Mary, than screaming and yelling at your kids, saying, this is how it is.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. You're
Yeah.
under my roof.
Yeah. I mean, she wasn't, people would say, well, doesn't that make you so mad? I was like, no, I'm not mad at all.
Yeah.
No, I showed up. I waited. She decided not to come. Like when she walks through the door 45 minutes later, because she had to walk home, I'm not mad. I'm like, hey,
No.
sugar, good to see
And
you.
how does she feel?
Well, I mean, they're used to me, but
So now when she wants to get rid of you, she's late.
maybe. No, they drive themselves now. But no, I mean, at the beginning, she was kind of like, Mom, I wish that, like, why can't you just be a regular mom? Like, oh, this is the best part. She's like, my friends' moms have started listening to you, and now they're getting left.
Oh no. Well, moms, I think Mary's got a point here. I think I'm really liking it. Very valuable. So let's talk about your 12-week course.
Yes.
When does that start?
January 12th is the kickoff call. Our first coaching call is the following week, January 19th. I made this workbook. I'll show you. I made this workbook. Can you see it?
Oh, loving boundaries. I love it.
Yes. So it's a workbook. It's got, lots of places for journaling and note taking. And each week, it's a curriculum based course.
Okay.
And so each week we have a specific lesson content that I teach. And the first half of our time together each week is teaching, and then the second half is coaching. And so you get to learn new skills, and then you get to implement those skills. And it's in a small group, and I've got.
Are you doing it on Zoom, virtual?
On Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing it on Zoom. I've got folks in every time zone and of the United States, and yeah, and it's on Zoom. I have done it on Zoom before, and I found that it works really well. We use some breakout rooms so that we have some smaller group discussion, and break out into pairs when there's something a little more deep to talk about. And I found that it works just great. It's a small group, so 8
How many can you hold?
I can hold 10.
10. Okay. So then you probably, how big are the breakout rooms? Just curious.
Depending on the activity. So sometimes breakout rooms are just in pairs. Sometimes the breakout rooms are, 3 breakout rooms with 3, or even just 2 breakout rooms with 4 or 5 in each.
So it gets pretty personal, and people feel trusting over the 12 weeks. I can imagine that there's really a lot of camaraderie there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an environment of trust, of learning, of growth. It's based on the idea that we're all valuable and that we're working on these things together. And, the group that just finished, they were like, we want to stay together. And so we came up with a creative way for us to be able to stay in communication with each other each week. And so,
oh, wow.
Yes. And the results they really speak for themselves. But that's, as a coach, that's where I get really excited and really proud of the work is, every person who has participated in this consistently is reporting more confidence, better decision-making skills, ability to set boundaries, ability to have hard conversations and do it with love, better self-care. All the results that we're going for, we're right on target with. And
how rewarding.
That's amazing. Yeah, in 12 weeks, when it's in a group, we can do it in 12 weeks. For people who sign up now next week, they will have healthy boundaries and more confidence by April 20th.
Oh,
So it's
nice.
really exciting.
So it sounds as though you've got a timeline of how often you're going to do these classes.
So yeah, I mean, I'm launching now, and I'll actually have two groups. I'll have one that meets Wednesday mornings and one that meets Wednesday nights, because I had some folks who really wanted to do it last time, and I only had a daytime availability, and so I'm going to offer two different time slots this
Super.
time. Yeah, and it I'm really excited. I'm just thrilled that it's been so effective, and that I get to watch women grow and progress and transform, and it's so fun, and
That's
it's really good.
so rewarding and speaks highly of your leadership,
Mm,
Mary.
thank you.
That's really terrific. So how do people get in touch with you?
Oh yeah. So my website is boundariescoach.com. And you can, if you go to my website, you can find me.
Okay.
Super easy. You can find all the information about the course. You can email me, mary@boundariescoach.com, and I'll answer that email. That's another way to get in touch with me.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, this is so valuable, and I hope that everybody comments, likes, and subscribes to the Who Do You Know? I love learning about entrepreneurs and why it's their passion. I mean, that's just the backbone of our country. And look at the passion that Mary has for it. When you find the ideal business, it just makes you want to lead and give back so much value to so many people. So thank you, Mary, for sharing all this great information. And I look forward to having people comment and sign up for your class.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate our discussion, Jenny.